warm welcome on this chilly night to the 9th Annual Students of Color Diversity Celebration here in the Morgridge College of Education. My name is Jody Dye. I'm the Director of Admissions here at Morgridge. Very excited to see so many of you have made the effort to join us this evening to join in important discussions about issues of equity, social justice, and inclusivity. The meat portion of the evening will begin with some panel discussion. We're lucky enough to be joined by 6 current students here at Morgridge from a variety of our programs here. After the panel discussion, we'll move into a larger group discussion and opportunity for question and answers. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce the Dean of the College, who will be opening remarks for us. So I would like to introduce Dr. Karen Riley, the Dean of the Morgridge College of Education.
Am I opening remarks or am I giving opening remarks? I don't know.
Well, it's your call.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I just wanted to welcome you all and say a couple of words about the panel and the intent of this evening. So we talk a lot in this college about our core values, and part of those core values, at least one of them that's central to almost everything we do, is around inclusive excellence. And when we think about inclusive excellence within the college, am I too close or something? Okay. Actually don't even need this because I have a big teacher voice. So when we talk about inclusive excellence, I think that sometimes it goes to race and ethnicity. Sometimes we talk about gender. Sometimes we talk about all different kinds of things. My hope is that you'll be able to hear from some of our students' perspective how that value is operationalized within the college. We have spaces that are dedicated towards achieving inclusive excellence. We hire people. Actually, in the dean's office, we have a gentleman that serves as the assistant to the dean who has Down syndrome. And so my hope, I think our hope as faculty, and hopefully that's part of what goes on in the classrooms as well, and is translated into the behavior of our students and the thoughts of our students, is that we embrace this and that we live this on a daily basis. So I have been moved by these panel discussions before, although some of you may not remember what you said up here before, but I think that the main thing is, and I've said this every time that we've opened this, is we ask them to present their reality. So I don't want them to, simply because the dean is standing right here or in the back, if they give you this sign, that we want them to be authentic, we want them to be real. Sometimes there are things that we hear that make us a little cringeworthy, like, ooh, did that really happen? That's something we need to hear and we need to work on. But this is their reality. This is their lived reality. And it's not everyone's lived reality, and they don't represent. We don't ask them to represent one particular group, but a wide range of perspectives. And hopefully that gives you a little insight into our beliefs, how those are operationalized on a daily basis, and how those are lived through the college. So thank you again for coming. We hope that you will be participatory in this, that you will ask questions, that you will engage deeply around this, and thank you again to all of you for coming and for sharing your perspective. We couldn't do it without you. Thanks again.
I can project too. All right. And to guide us in our panel discussion, I would now like to introduce Dr. Lolita Tabron, who is the Assistant Professor in our Educational Leadership and Policy Studies program.
Good evening. It is an honor to be here tonight. Welcome. Before we begin, I'd like to begin with by speaking candidly from my heart to yours. My race has always been a difference that has made a difference. My entire life. Race has been so prevalent in my life that when asked to serve as a moderator, I had to address opposing thoughts feeding my reluctance. Was I selected because of my lived experiences and research on college access and transition that qualifies me to speak here today? Or was I asked to speak because I happen to be faculty of color who was available to speak tonight? These scrutinizing thoughts are not unique but are often filtered through. Did I experience that because ... I am Black, a woman, young. You fill in your blank. Which ism did I experience? Critical race theorist Kimberly Crenshaw would say, yes, my dear, you've just learned about intersectionality, those layering identities. But the frustrating part about these experiences is that they have me constantly playing defense instead of quarterbacking amazing plays. I often wonder what it would be like to play offense and have an offensive line that is blocking for me. Sometimes I feel like quitting. Sometimes I don't want to explain. Sometimes I don't want to show up. My excellence is a form of protest, and it is exhausting. However, before I sink into dark contemplation, I'm reminded of what First Lady Michelle Obama stated at the Pennsylvania Conference for Women. She said, and I quote, "If you are scared to use your voice, then you've got to get up and give it to someone who isn't afraid to use that spot." This simple perspective and truth reminds me that simply being you is not always easy, but being you is necessary. The world is saturated with untold stories and mistold stories. No one can tell your story better than you can. We need you because your voice is needed in this place and space. Each of you will have the ear of someone that I or the person next to you might not. You and your uniqueness is strength. DU is not perfect, nor is it striving to be. However, DU is striving to be more reflective, inclusive, and more equity and social justice oriented. Accomplishing that mission without you is not only difficult, it is incomplete without you, your voice, your perspective, and your work. So I speak to you, including those of you on the panel tonight. You are not tokens. You are not imposters. I believe that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. We are fulfilling dreams that our ancestors didn't even know that they could dream. You are here because we need you. We need you to have a seat at the table. I would now like to move into our panel discussion, opportunities and challenges, my experiences at Morgridge, where I will ask the panelists to introduce themselves. In the first question, if you could please introduce yourself, state your program and where you are in your progression, and please share any relevant long-term professional goals.
Okay, so 6 inches away. Okay. Hello, my name is Brianna Mestas. I am going to follow your lead in terms of identifying or just naming my salient identities. I identify as Chicana from Apache descent. My family is from Colorado and northern New Mexico. I identify as bisexual queer, and I am in my 3rd year of the PhD program in C&I, Curriculum and Instruction, and I'm really hoping to finish my coursework this year. I think I'll stop there. I'll get into research interests later.
My name is Alfredo Gallegos. I am in the 2nd year Masters of Higher Education. I am also currently the Assistant Director of Student Success within the Campus Life and Inclusive Excellence. So my role focuses on supporting first-generation students, documented and undocumented students, and then I get to be the campus liaison for the Daniels Fund Scholars, and I'm helping the Denver Scholarship Foundation also get up and running a little bit too. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm also originally from Nayarit, Mexico.
My name is Shakira Haywood. I identify as a black woman, and I am in my third year of the counseling psych program. And I am hopefully finishing my coursework. I should be finishing my coursework this year and then going off into internship. And long-term goals sort of include a blend between practice, research, and administrative roles.
Hi, my name is Kayla Delgado. I am a second-year student in the Library and Information Science program, and I identify as a Latina. I am mixed, and so I feel like I bring a unique perspective, especially to the library science program, where it's traditionally a very white profession. And being mixed, I have almost a dual perspective that I'm really excited to share. My focus is on public libraries and school libraries serving children, and I'm particularly interested in disenfranchised populations and bringing social justice and equity to the library science profession.
Hello? Okay. My name is Jose Teniente. I identify as a Chicano. I'm a first quarter CFSP student, EDS. I also work at the Marsco Institute, right back in that hallway. Kind of jump in between projects right now, but my ultimate goal is to end up working and serving those schools who serve the communities of at-risk, low-income kind of communities.
Hey, what up, peeps? My name is Anthony McWright. I'm black. You didn't know. I mean, I'm just saying, just to put it out there. I'm in stage of writing. We just finished our coursework, my cohort and I. And so in the first stages of writing my proposal. And so I'm in the ELPS program. ELPS, Educational Leadership and Policies and Studies. I'm a principal in Denver, originally from Mississippi, grew up in the civil rights. That's about me. I mean, nothing else. If you want to know, ask him.
So, can you all hear me? Yeah. So I have a series of questions that I'm going to ask. I want to say that you do not, no need to feel obligated for everyone down the row to ask, no passing of the mic. But if you feel compelled to respond, please do. And hopefully we'll have time for question and answer at the end. And if you do have questions during that segment, you can come here to pose your question. So we're going to open with, what did you see in the University of Denver that affirmed your decision to enroll?
I'll tackle this one. So being from Mississippi, I've gone through several schools. I mean, I went to master's study and all of this. I thought I was done with school, and I'll tell you why. I went to LSU and I got into law school, and I walked in a class of 153 of my cohort. And the teacher asked me, Professor White, he had just graduated Yale, maybe 2 years younger than me. He said, when you walked in, do you consider yourself going to be a lawyer who's black or a black lawyer? And I was like, man, I'm a lawyer who's going to be black. He's like, you're a fool. You're the only person in this room that believe that. He's like, from this point on, you need to realize your color matters. And so as I went throughout my teaching career, I started doing things. I was like, I need to do this to prove something. And I was chasing a ghost. So when I moved to Denver, I had a business here. And I was like, I've got to finish this degree just for my mother. You know, anybody here has that mother, you just want to make her proud. So I was choosing schools, and I was walking around, and I asked a friend, I was like, hey man, what's a school up here I could go to? He said, well, you got these. You can get your opinions, pros and cons for any university. So he recommended a lady that I talked to. The lady knew my wife. She's like, no, I'm not the person to talk to. You need to talk to this person. So I went, and then there was Dr. Frank Tuitt. He's in higher ed. So I walked to Frank's office, and the first thing that happened was, he's like, I don't have time today. I've got 10 minutes. I'll give you those 10 minutes. Let's schedule a talk later. Brought me back in. We talked for 2 to 3 hours. At that moment, I knew I was sold. What Frank told me about the experiences he had at Harvard, his experiences here, and then he told me this: if we don't get into the fight, then we'll never make a change. But then I met Dr. Hesbold and Dr. Miller Brown, and we did our interview, and then Dr. Brown gave me some stuff on the IDI. From those points on, my life has been gravy. And I can tell you I've had my struggles, and then Dr. Anderson and Dr. Tabron came and rejuvenated that. So I can tell you the reason I chose here was not the institution itself, but the people I've met along the way.
Yeah, to kind of build off that, I would say a huge influence for me coming here was the people as well. I'm a first-generation graduate, so when I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I kind of figured, why not keep going? see what bar I can kind of set for my kids and so on and so forth. And when I came for interview day, if any of you guys have ever had Dr. Raines as a teacher, I came for interview day and I took her mock class, and it just opened my eyes to all the kind of concepts there is in diversity and stuff like that. So it wasn't even the CSFP program that actually sold me. I knew that the program was accredited. I knew that it was great. I knew that wherever I go, I can kind of just push myself to keep setting that bar higher and higher and higher. But when I met Dr. Raines and she kind of opened that door and set that kind of standard, it really encouraged me to come here. So.
I came here for the money. So, for my personal experience, DU actually offered me a really great graduate assistantship and a really good housing plan. And so originally I was going to go to the University of San Diego, and about a week and a half before my flight, the Center for Multicultural Excellence called me and said, hey, we have an amazing graduate position. Would you like to come interview? I was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose. Why not? Went in, interviewed, and I think the very next day they called me and offered me the position. And at the same time, housing called me and offered me a position with their office. So I was like, you can't beat the money. So that's why I decided to come here. But then once I stuck around, I think the faculty are just phenomenal here and just really know how to support you, especially being like a first-generation student, not knowing what grad school was all about. They just did an amazing job with just guiding you the right way and just really being there for you and supporting you in any type of support you need.
As someone who attended the University of Denver Publishing Institute 7 years ago, I, at the time, thought I wanted to work in book publishing, but I didn't want to leave my lovely state of Colorado. I'm a native, and I always held, DU in high regards, but I didn't necessarily see myself as a student here. I went to CSU for my undergrad, and when I came here for the Publishing Institute, which is a grad level program, but it's just a summer intensive course essentially. But doing that program opened my eyes to how much investment there is from professors into their students here, that they're invested in you emotionally and academically, and they want you to succeed in whatever your aspirations are. They're there for you, and I realized that in that program. And at the time I didn't realize I wanted to be a librarian, but just in the last few years when it dawned on me that it made perfect sense for me to be in library science, I looked at my options, and if you want to stay in this area, you're pretty limited on where you can find a master's in library science. And when it came down to it, I was looking at online program, and then I was also looking at DU, and it made perfect sense to me that I would come here. Looking at the cohort size, our program is small, and we have very intimate classes. We get to know each other really well. We're supportive. Our interests are diverse, and so there's not only support from faculty, but also investment in each other. And so I knew that coming to DU was going to, benefit me well beyond my 2 years that I would be here.
I'll be very brief. I just wanted to echo sort of the trend of the people here. And so the people I interviewed with, the warmth that I felt from the students of color and just all of the students in general are the feelings that brought me to DU, and some of the people that I met on interview day are still, my close friends today. So I think that was probably the most important decision for me.
And for me, I didn't really know what I was looking for. So like Jose, I'm a first-generation college student. And so I didn't have necessarily a ton of guidance. I had a lot of emotional support, love, and encouragement from my family, but I didn't have those critical conversations about what to look for and ask when considering a program. I also wanted to stay in Colorado, and I did my undergrad at CU Boulder, and I wanted a different experience because it was, in many ways, it was a very tough place to be because it's a predominantly white institution. So I didn't necessarily quite understand that DU is also a PWI and would be tough in many of the similar ways. I just knew that I wanted to get some research experience and I wanted to stay in Colorado, and I didn't want it to be at CU Boulder. So that left to you.
What is the hardest and most rewarding part about being a student in Morgridge?
I think for me, there's not a hard part about being a student in Morgridge. I think the hard part for me comes being a student at DU. I think being a predominantly white institution, coming from an undergraduate institution that was extremely diverse, for me that was a huge culture shock. So I think just being a predominantly white institution I just was not used to, and that probably has been the hardest part to navigate. I remember, I think, week 3, and I was like, well, this isn't for me, I'm done. Like, I am out of here. But it was really those peers here at the institution and those people you work with and those strong leaders of color that were just really, you learn to gravitate towards, that really kept me here. So I think there isn't a hard part about being at Morgridge. I think my experience at Morgridge has been extremely amazing. And again, the faculty and the staff here are phenomenal. But I think being at DU in general, being a predominantly white institution, I think that's the hardest part about being here. So.
I can go ahead and echo that a little bit. I think being in Denver or Colorado as a state is a little bit hard for me. I'm coming from the Midwest. So I grew up in Detroit, and then I went to school in Chicago for quite some time. And so I think the hardest part for me initially was the lack of diversity and having to find the pockets and the areas that sort of speak to my identities. And so I think that was the tough transition. And even within the College of Education, I think finding those pockets, finding those people has been the most important part of my experience.
To build off of what these two both were just saying, I think one of the challenges of not only Morgridge but DU is realizing that there's a lot of privilege here, and although that may not be your experience, your voice is still very important, and finding that voice and using it is challenging but rewarding, and I feel that that's very much encouraged at Morgridge, and I think we're all very supportive of each other in trying to accomplish that too.
Giving up SEC football on Saturday for 2.5 years. So the most challenging was working full time and having to come on Saturdays. That's difficult. But the rewarding part was the professors here will not accept anything but your very best. And they're going to push you there because they know you deserve it. If you sit in that chair, they're going to give you their all. So when we finished that cohort, that was the most rewarding day of my life. I made it through this, and I felt like I'm ready to tackle whatever it is with my cohort, with the future endeavors. Just going through that process was rewarding when we finished. So.
I think that, so just to echo what folks have said about DU being a tough place, I've definitely experienced that as well. And I think that education as a field is often portrayed as being a neutral field. So I think that has been difficult for me, coming from a critical lens and wanting to have bring in a more radical perspective and what that looks like for education and pushing that sort of agenda forward. There are other schools on campus that have, that politicized critical perspective is built in more to the culture. Like the School of Social Work is the one school that I think about constantly, where you go in and you'll have like meetings or classes, and like you center yourself and your disposition. You start like all meetings with like the pronouns that you use, which I use she, her, hers, and that is not a part of Morgridge culture. And so there's that, and I agree that there's incredible faculty here, incredible students. It's just I've found that I've had to bring my experiences, my knowledge, my epistemological stance, because it's not going to be, in most places, it's not going to be created for me. So that's been tough sometimes.
So to also echo what everyone is saying, I think the faculty have been probably the most rewarding part of joining this program. They really keep you accountable, and they're really good about kind of emailing you and kind of setting up meetings to where they tell you where you are, they tell you where they want you to be, things like that. But one of the challenges, I'm also a huge football fan, Big 12, by the way. I'm a die-hard sports fan for whatever. Oklahoma. No, I'm a die-hard sports fan, and I definitely represent whatever school that I've been to with honor and with all the stereotypical things that you would expect. But I went to a DU hockey game for the first time, and I think it was the very first sporting event I've ever been to where I felt like the other, and that kind of broke me because, like I said, I'm very big on sports. I'm very big on, go my school, beat the other school, but it was kind of hard to kind of have that whenever I felt that way. So I would say that was probably the biggest challenge.
What has your experience in graduate school been like in terms of mentorship? Have you found mentors here at DU, and if so, how?
I found a mentor. She actually, I would say that she doesn't know she's my mentor, but I see her very much as a mentor. One of my instructors, Dr. McDermott, she's actually sitting here. And she really reached out to me and it made me feel really comfortable being in the program, and made me feel like I have a space to talk when I have things that I'm concerned about, because I don't have like I said, I'm a first generation, so I don't have anything to kind of compare my work to. I don't have a cousin or a dad or anything like that where I can say, what did you do when you're at that level? So it's really nice to kind of have that space, and I've really appreciated that.
I don't think I've had a mentor. I think I've had many peers that have encouraged me to do my best and have really pushed me in the right direction. I think what DU has done, it has given me an opportunity to be a mentor. So again, within my role, I was able to develop a first-generation pilot program called One Gen U that has allowed me to be that mentor for first-generation students that are at predominantly white institutions and just feeling a little bit lost, or that sense of belonging. I think that's what DU has really offered me the chance to be, and work with some incredible students and undergrad students who, again, just sometimes need that extra support or that extra person to just walk in. I can walk into their office and just speak about anything I can. So I think, again, I don't think I've had a direct mentor. I think I've had many individuals who have supported me throughout this journey, and God, it's been a hard journey. But I think it's also allowed me to be a personal mentor for these incoming first years or second years that are really struggling with their sense of belonging, or struggling with finding that one person of color at this institution that they can kind of relate to.
I know the library science program is very small, and we have some really dedicated alumni, but in the last year, with my cohort at least, we attempted to have a mentorship program that actually failed for a lot of people, and they're trying to figure out a way to reinvigorate this program and make it more meaningful for the mentor and the mentee. So I think that there's a lot of hope there, given that it's such a small field. It makes perfect sense for DU to make these mentorships happen. But I do feel that our advisors and our faculty in the program, given that it's so small, are very much invested in us. And so they serve as our mentors a lot of times. And that's part of what I love about our program and about this college, is that everyone knows everybody by name. Like, they actually know your story, they care about you, and they realize that there are a lot of struggles and challenges that come with higher education and doing this work, especially students that are, maybe first in their family to make it this far. And I love that I feel like I'm seen all the time by my faculty and my advisor, and so I think they serve as our mentors. But I also think that there's a lot of mentorship that happens within the cohorts too. I'm sure that I'm not the only one who felt a lot of imposter syndrome at first when I first got here, and felt like I was completely displaced and was questioning everything about what I was doing. But having people within the program, even within our own cohorts, that can support you and shed light on your strengths is a huge asset, and I think that the culture at Morgridge really encourages that.
So I've been thinking a lot about mentorship in general, and like Jose, I would say that I don't have a formal mentor, but I have developed relationships with staff and faculty members, and I know that I can go to them for guidance and support, and I feel a sense of trust and respect with them. although it hasn't been an articulated formal mentorship relationship. The CNI program, we just started a student mentorship program this year because we identified a need within the program to support incoming students. So that's something that, I mean, we know that the first year, the first quarter is really tough, and so we wanted to give back to our CNI community and help ease that transition a bit. So I think there are a lot of opportunities for mentorship, to serve as a mentor and to be in that mentee role here within the college.
Have you had an opportunity to work with faculty on research projects?
No, but I want to.
I can go ahead and speak to that. I just had a research meeting yesterday. So in our program, we're sort of practicing research right in the middle, and I have gotten fabulous opportunities with research, working with one of our faculty, Dr. Jesse Owen. And so I've done quite a bit of research that has been applied. So working, my dissertation itself is more applied psychology and working with clients and how they perceive or how therapists are multiculturally oriented, or how they are being with cultural clients. And so that is my dissertation. That's what Jesse believes in. He just wrote a book on it, and so that's sort of my experience in research. But I attend research meetings every day. On our website, we have all of our faculty members' research times, what their current research is, what they're interested in, and there's also a lot of cross-departmental research within our program. And so, I mean, I don't know, maybe I just really like research. I'm like, there's tons of research opportunities. But also, I feel like if you aren't so research lovely, if you don't really like research that much, there are other opportunities for you to have within the clinic and other areas. So for me, there's a ton of research. I love research. So, yeah.
Yeah, so to kind of add on to what she was saying, I personally haven't had any kind of research experience with any of my instructors, but they do have, just about every instructor I have has a vertical research team that they have open invitations, any kind of cohort or any student can join. A lot of my research experience comes from working at Marsico, like I mentioned earlier, and my project actually got frozen, but they did a really good job at kind of bouncing me between projects, so that way I still had that research experience, and it wasn't just like, too bad, your project's frozen, you know, so. I think that I've had a lot of good opportunities here to do some research, if that's what you're into.
My experience has also been at Marsico. I have a graduate assistantship there, which is helping me pay for my tuition. That's essentially how I'm able to be here. And so research is a part of my daily life here. I'm working with Dr. Julie Sarama and Dr. Doug Clements. And we're working on an early childhood math development project. So that isn't necessarily my area, but I felt that I could bring my experience as a previous elementary teacher to the research project. And so in that way, I've felt like it's been a great opportunity to see different kinds of research and almost to try it on for size and see what is out there. Although it's not necessarily my area of focus. So that's been helpful for sure.
How would you describe the classroom environment? In your response, please be sure to include examples of how your fellow students and the faculty have influenced your learning.
I love the way the classroom is structured here at Morgridge, especially in my program. For me, I'm not a lecture type. You can't lecture at me. That's just unfortunately not the way I learn. But the way that Morgridge has really been able to apply my learning style to the classroom is I love classroom discussions. I love arguing. I love talking about it. Like, I just love that. That thrills me. And so Morgridge really gives a class the freedom to say, hey, let's have a class discussion about it. What is your personal experience? What have you experienced from this? How about you bring that research into it? How about we do an interactive activity, and it's less lecturing, and that's what I absolutely love about this program, that it's not lecture style. It's more, hey, let's learn as a community, and let's see what each one of our different experiences brings to the table. So I just really, really enjoyed that.
If they're still true to form, you will be placed with a cohort. And our cohort, I can tell you, they're lifelong friends for me. I'm a black male, which you all know. I've shared my experiences of racism, injustices along the way. Not one time did I ever feel that from my cohort, not one time. And I can tell you from experience, walking into the room, I was nervous, like who's going to be the jackass today, or who's going to be the person you just want to choke, or whatever. But walking into the room, I felt like everyone was so diverse in so many ways. They did a very good job of placing us together. Even though we were that diverse, we were very much alike in so many areas. And when we shared those experiences, that only made us grow closer. And I can tell you, I have apprehensions about, at times I'm a pessimist. I'm thinking to myself, man, what is this? I'm with Dr. T on this. Did I get this because? And the professors here, the majority of the time, made me feel like, okay, you can do this. I mean, there's a reason why we're putting you through this. It has nothing to do with we want you to succeed. And for the majority of my time here, that has driven me beyond. I can't tell you what that cohort and the professors have done to keep me in this program or to make me want to finish. It's not just my mom. They've instilled something in me, even as an old man, that is still accomplishable if you put your mind to it. The second part of it, I made friends along the way. These are folks that we still party together. I'm old. I go home by 9 o'clock when, they're still out, but we still party. But it was a great environment, and that the choice of our cohort, how they placed us, was very essential to my experience here, and I'm very grateful for that.
So I think our department is becoming more increasingly diverse, and so what I and a lot of my other peers have been doing is sort of pushing a cultural agenda in the classroom. And so with every class that we have, with every topic that we have, it's not just diversity saved to the last week to talk about. It's been infusing diversity within every class, asking critical questions, looking at research articles and talking about how this might not fit for something. Just being very critical of the material that we are taking in and then pushing that agenda to create the space to talk about culture. And so I think the younger cohorts beneath me are also pushing that. And I think for me, it's every day we're talking about culture. It's part of me every day, and I think it should be part of you. You see it in me, and so I think it needs to be talked about. And so additionally, we do have the opportunity to teach. And so I've taught a diversity class last year for the undergrads, and so that was me pushing my agenda every week, and I think the undergraduate population really appreciated that, and that's what I really appreciate our program is the ability to teach, and no one is necessarily asking me like, oh, so how's that diversity class going? Are you talking too much about diversity, or are you doing this, are you doing that? It was really just me and another colleague having the opportunity to talk about what we felt was important and to share to some of the kids here at DU.
So since I'm a first year, and this is week 9, I've only known my cohort 9 weeks. Yeah, and just hearing what you said actually kind of inspired me. But one thing that I've noticed is that when I originally got asked to do this panel, I had a lot of feelings and a lot of concerns going forward with it. So I thought to myself, what a great opportunity to kind of open myself up to my cohort and maybe have something back to me that I'd be useful, and maybe we can all kind of talk about it. And when I sent it out into the group chat, I got plenty of responses that were all positive, super validating. They were just extremely helpful. I mean, even now my phone's buzzing, and it's them texting like, hey, I hope your panel goes great. I hope this is going, like, sorry we can't be there. We have papers, which I understand because I also have papers I need to finish. But if it's any indication to what my friend here said, I'm pretty excited and looking forward to that. So.
And I just want to echo what everyone has said. Obviously, we all are very fond of our cohorts. Shout out to the LAS from over there. And I think that every time I walk through the halls of Morgridge, I glance into these other classes. And I wish I knew more about these other amazing programs, except maybe not, because then I would want to keep going. But anyway, so I walk by these classrooms, and they're all very small classes. And everyone that's in these classrooms looks engaged in what they're doing. They're paying attention. They're like actively listening. And it's really inspiring. And I feel like that happens in every one of my classes too. The library science program, some of us just completed a course in privilege and equity, which was a really powerful class. It was a small group of us. There were maybe 8 of us in this group. And the discussions that we had were incredible, and it was really powerful, and it was such a great testament to the cohort and the program and the type of people that come here to learn, because every discussion was respectful and insightful, and I know I'm a better person for having taken that course, and I feel like I'm a better person for knowing the people in my cohort. You know, like they've said, these people will be my friends for life, not only as professional colleagues, but as like legitimate friends. And I think that was an unexpected bonus that came with joining Morgridge and the LIS program here at DU.
So not all programs have cohorts. CNI is one program that doesn't necessarily have like a cohort that you travel through the same classes together. I have had a number of classes with the same folks, and it's really lovely to see them in different spaces and just to see how folks have grown and developed over the course of even like a quarter, which is something else I think that when we're talking about the classroom environment, it very much depends on the classroom. It very much depends on the instructor, the topic, and then who makes up that classroom community, right? And the quarter system, this is my first experience with a quarter system, and it goes by really quick. So sometimes that's great when you really want to switch things up, and other times I feel like for me, because I don't have that cohort, I've definitely had some wonderful classes where I just don't want them to end. But then I think there's an opportunity to continue working with folks. But in terms of classroom environment, I think for me there's been classrooms where like race and is not centered at all. Like that's just not even brought into what we're doing. I've also had classes where that's central to the curriculum, and those have been classes that have really just energized me because that's centered around my research interests. And then there are also classes where, like I explained before, where I'm bringing in my identity and part of my identity to carve out some space and essentially ensure that I'm not going to be erased in them. So I really think that the classroom environment for me has changed every single quarter.
So I want to speak to what was mentioned on the panel, where when you're in predominantly white institutions, we're often invisible. And then we get in these spaces and we're hyper visible. And so I would like to frame the next question in this way. When you don't know what to do with that, I would challenge you to leverage it. So when I ask this question, I would like for you to speak of ways in which DU is affirming you and ways that maybe we can work to do better. The dean is giving you permission. So it's in your experience, how have you seen an appreciation for diversity and inclusion practice at the Morgridge College of Education?
This is a tough question for me personally. It's initially, I only had white female teachers. I had a couple of white male teachers. And of course, I don't want to say a teacher can't teach you because of race, but it's hard sometimes when they don't identify to some of your personal feelings. So I would go across and I would call a friend of mine. He just went through the program, Dr. Cobb, Floyd Cobb. So I would call Floyd. I was like, hey man, how do you deal with this? And he would give me pointers in this, but he was still not that teacher in the classroom. And I'll tell you what really kind of pushed me over the hump, because there were times I was thinking, man, why am I doing this? You know, if I'm almost done with my career, I've got 28 years in, I could just walk out of here and leave it alone. And then Dr. Tabor and Dr. Anderson came in. And I told them personally, and I'll tell them you publicly, that there were moments that I thought I would hang up these books and put it down. And I walked into their classes, and some of the statements they made to me reaffirmed. This is a statement she made to me on one of my papers. You're black, you're educated, but you're unapologetic. And what that statement told to me was never compromise who I am. And no matter what's coming through, even though it may not look like I want it to look, my presence at that table is needed, it's wanted, it's going to inspire the next generation. So I can tell you there are moments that you're going to feel like, well, I knew I was invisible. And my cohort was there to support me, and I felt comfortable with that, but it was not like my voice was out front. And those two ladies, I'm going to tell them personally tonight, the reason I sit here before you is because of their inspiration to that end. They know it. I've already told them privately. But I wasn't going to say it, but I'm going to tell you today. It's just those statements and the little things they inspired me in class made me feel like I was a part of this university, full throat.
So for me, I grew up in a very white, conservative, rural farming community. And so the exposure that I get to culture at DU in general is really powerful to me. I know that when I'm in my classes, the LIS profession is, like I mentioned earlier, very white. It's a very white profession, and so our program is also lacking some diversity. So if you're here and you might join the LIS program, please do. Please do. Please come and help diversify this profession in this field. But I know that in the college, like, I see people from all cultures all the time, whether that's in my faculty or students from other programs. Like, I am constantly amazed at just the pure exposure that I have to other cultures by being a DU student. And I'd also like to acknowledge that there are opportunities to continue your education in regards to privilege and equity and social justice and diversity and inclusion if you seek them out. You know, it may not be opportunities that are solely provided through Morgridge, but it may be the university. But if you want to find classes and trainings, they're there. And I appreciate that so much, that DU isn't trying to hit some mark of inclusive excellence, like, oh, we hit it, we're done, we're there, we're perfect now. You know, like, it's an ongoing goal that they're striving for, and I think that they count on us as students to be striving for that goal as well, and they do provide opportunities to further our education in regards to that.
So I'm still really new, like I said, so this is the first thing that I've seen. So it's taken 9 weeks, I guess, to see something in terms of inclusion and diversity and spreading kind of social justice awareness and stuff like that. So I would say that coming from always having a solid group of other Chicanos, other Latinos, always having that group from elementary school to graduate, or to my bachelor's degree, my undergrad, here I had to find other ways. I felt like I had to find other ways to kind of fit in. So like my wardrobe, for example, I had to change that. I had to start dressing professional. I had to start dressing more business casual. The way I talk, this is just unique to me, but I like to include a lot of slang in my language. I like to include kind of just, let's just take it easy, have kind of a normal conversation. But I learned pretty quickly that when I kind of talk like that to my predominantly white cohort, they kind of, it definitely gets lost in translation what I'm trying to say. Like, they don't really kind of connect with me in that way. So I said, okay, I have to find another way to connect with them. So I'm gonna use school. So whenever I am interacting with my cohort, I normally bring up school, because that's the first thing that I know that we have in common. I haven't been here as long as other people on the panel, so that may change, but as of right now, that's kind of where I'm at, and that's kind of how I feel about diversity and inclusion here at DU.
So like I mentioned earlier, our program is sort of moving towards a more diverse cohort, and so what I think is happening from my experience is that a lot of us are pushing this cultural agenda, and I don't think that some of the faculty above us are necessarily pushing that agenda as radically as we are. And so I think in our cohort and in my cohort, we found sort of a sacred space and sort of refuge in that, but I think we could do better at sort of pushing that agenda and being more inclusively excellent all around, so that it goes from the top down instead of from the bottom up.
I say fudge it. Sorry, pardon my French, but you know, for me, it's like, this is who I am, this is the way I dress, and this is the way I talk, and I'm not going to be non-apologetic, and I'm not going to change who I am, unfortunately. That's just not who I am. And I'm not going to sit here and say Morgridge and DU is diverse and it's inclusive. What I am going to say is it has a long, long way to go. However, there are many strides that are being taken. And so, for example, I think of the faculty that have been recruited here from very diverse backgrounds, giving their very different perspectives. And I have to give it up to all the cohorts. It seems like that is a common theme that keeps coming up, but even our cohorts, race and ethnicity and diversity and inclusion keeps coming up. And when it doesn't, we always circle it back around. It's like, nope, let's come back to what she said. We were talking about this. Let's come back to that. And so I think it's coming down to a lot of our cohorts that are really pushing this. But I think it's coming down to the diverse faculty and staff Morgridge keeps recruiting. But again, we still have a long, long way to go. But hey, this is a start.
We have time for one more question, and we won't be able to hear from all of you, but if you feel pressed or to answer the question, please do. What is the best piece of advice you could offer another student in the graduate school search process?
Chase the money. Probably mine would be chase the money. My one rule was I am not going to pay for my master's. I am absolutely not. I am valuable enough as an individual, and my knowledge is valuable enough that someone should be paying me to attend their institution. So my thing is chase the money every time.
Make sure it fits what you want, what you need, and also make sure that you understand you're about to put a lot of time and money into this, and if it's not what you want to do your research up front.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Do your homework, and I think the best advice I could give would be to talk to current students that are in that program, and not just one. Don't just call one or reach out to one. Talk to many of them, because we all are very diverse, and so our experiences are radically different. And I think if you're going to commit all of this money and this time and this effort and energy to something, let it be something that you love and feel passionate about, and make sure that the people that are there doing it right now are feeling positive that this is an investment that they will reap rewards for forever.
And
I would say, oh, sorry, go ahead. Rocks, paper, scissors, okay. I was just going to say,
Oh.
okay, you go ahead. I'll put down the mic.
Okay, so I feel like kind of what folks are saying is that you are going to go through a process of socialization in whatever program that you're in. So I think when you're thinking about, you're doing some backwards planning of like, where do I want to be, and am I going to be nurtured to be the scholar, the activist, the researcher that I want to be? And if not, that's okay. Like, find an institution that will help you grow to give back in the way that you imagine yourself doing. Okay, Jose.
Sorry. No, I was just going to speak directly to the prospective students. If you're sitting here as a prospective student, you're obviously very driven. You obviously know, you kind of have an idea of where you want to end up and where you want to be. Best case scenario, have your degree paid for you. That's obviously best case, not having to pay any money later. But also keep in mind that you are investing on yourself. So although like the price tag seems pretty steep, you're investing in yourself. It's only you that can kind of drive yourself to do what you want to do. So don't let the finances, if you don't get much, because I have a scholarship from DU, but it's not much. I'm not going to let that keep me from being educated. I'm not going to let that keep me from getting the higher degree. I want to be a school psychologist, so I am going to do whatever I can to become a school psychologist. So like I said, if you're here, you obviously know kind of where you want to go, and I would say just stick with that, and it'll take care of itself later. Just invest in yourself. So.
Just really, really quickly, I just wanted to say speak your truth and speak who you are. I think putting your identity out there forward, and if the person doesn't receive that well, that's not a place where you need to be. So I think being able to be honest and true is the most important thing, and if you receive warmth, then that's a place where you should be.
Joe, you have time for the audience? Okay. Yes, so I know we're running out of time, but I wanted to open it up to any questions from the audience. We have time for maybe one or two.
So I do have a list, but I will only ask you one. So I just want to preface this comment that I hear y'all talking a lot about, and I say y'all intentionally so that I don't gender my verbiage. I hear y'all talking a lot about culture, and I just want to say white is a culture too. I know we'd like to think that that's the norm and then everything else is culture, but they are also culture, and that makes us not be othered, right? So asking that question, it sounds like y'all are saying a lot of the culture of your curriculum and kind of your experiences here is white culture. And so it sounds like y'all are also doing a lot of labor in your classrooms and in your cohorts, we're committing to like a very long time of being with these people. And so I guess I'm just curious as to like what happens when your cohort becomes so laborsome, and you're dealing with microaggressions and all of that jazz. Like they don't have to say it outright, right? Like we know what you mean because we live this experience. I want to know, how do you deal with that? Does the university have a process if your cohort becomes unbearable, unlivable? What does that look like for y'all?
So that was a great question. I actually haven't spent much time with my cohort to have the answer to that, but if I were thinking about what would happen if that did happen to me, I would say that I would use what I learned in my diversity class, which is just to simply have the tough conversation, bring it up, make it known what bothers you, make it known how things should be handled, kind of just have those tough conversations, because if we're not going to bring up any of the tough subjects, then nothing's ever going to get done, nothing's ever going to change. So that's kind of what I would do.
Sometimes you have to tell people how to treat you. They don't know. So you have to set your expectations, but also know that you have the freedom not to speak and not to have to be the person to explain. That's your liberty. Any other questions?
I was going to say, catch me outside. That's what I would say. You know, I've been really lucky and fortunate, and Morgridge just did such a great job with really having a diverse, at least in my experience in my cohort, it's just a very diverse cohort. That we actually haven't had that issue so far. I think there's been a little bit pockets here and there, but again, it's such, my cohort is just so diverse that it's so easy for us to, again, circle back around. It's like, this is an important subject, let's talk about it now, and let's bring it up. Let's not just keep ignoring it and pushing it under the rug. And again, that's just something that I've been really fortunate enough, and again, Morgridge has done a really great job of really diversifying their cohorts. So.
And really quickly, I was just going to say, I've been really fortunate that my cohort is also lovely and respectful, and so it's been a positive experience, but I do feel that if it took a turn in any way, that the faculty are very supportive and very responsive in supporting inclusive excellence, so that you feel seen and heard, and that there's actually, action instead of just intent.
Actually, it is kind of a question and suggestion. Have you guys ever thought about taking this panel to high schools or middle schools?
Every day.
Okay.
I'm a high school principal.
Okay. Just saying, this is good, and kids need to hear this.
Yeah,
And
actually.
young lady about the cohort, there was the cohort prior to us experienced some of those, and some of the guys in there that I talked to in there, the faculty jumped all over that. You sign an agreement when you come in. These are our norms. These are our expectations. You live outside of that. First is your cohort's duty to get you back on. If it doesn't, we take it to the faculty. They take care of that.
To just go off what you were saying, again, it is really important to do this. Again, I'm really fortunate enough to just land it in the role I did. I actually get to do a lot of outreach to high schools and sit there, and then we usually have panels. It's important for other students, especially early on, to see people of color going to school, getting their master's degree, being in these high-level positions. It's really important, and I am, again, really fortunate and really strategic of how I hire my staff, and I have this amazing coordinator who works with our DACA and undocumented students and who goes to the high schools and talks about how DACA and undocumented students can go to college and how it is possible. So again, it's really important to take these panels to the high schools, and at least I get to say that I'm at least doing my little small part to do that. So
That's our time. If we can thank our panelists. And Jody's coming to have some closing remarks.
Excellent. Thank you so much to all of you, and to all of you for your time and attention and engagement in our discussion. A quick reminder for prospective students that are here tonight. If and when you begin an application, we will gladly waive your $65 application fee for your attendance here this evening. So I'm happy to talk to you individually to talk about what that process looks like, but basically you would just email mce@du.edu and indicate that you attended this event, and we will gladly pay for that. Excuse me. With that, we will close and wish you a wonderful night. Thank you.